Hey there, this is John from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to day 4 of official Conspiracy Take the Crown previews. Today we have 10 cards to look at, and as you can see from the title screen, we have one really big reprint to talk about. On top of that, though, we also have some other really good cards. Before I get started, I do want to take a moment to remind you, if you haven't been following these previews this week, you may want to check out the video we did Monday 1st. That video we talked about a lot of the mechanics. We went into the gory details of all of those. So today when I talk about the cards, I'm going to kind of gloss through the mechanics, assuming you're already aware of how they work. But for some reason, if you're not, just check out that video. We do have a playlist on the channel. This video makes 5 videos in the playlist, and if you watch all 5, you'll see all the cards that have been previewed so far. So having said that, let's jump into the new stuff. Our first card is a conspiracy. It's Weight Advantage. This is a colorless conspiracy. It's a rare. Start the game with this conspiracy face up in your command zone. Each creature you control assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. Now, this is kind of hard to evaluate since there's so much of the set we haven't seen yet. Obviously, if there's a lot of good high toughness creatures in the set, this becomes a much better card, right? So it's hard to say whether this is a good early pick or mid pick or late pick at this point until we see the rest of the set. Having said that, we have seen some good high toughness creatures. We're going to look at one actually in just a few moments here. So I know they're out there. What feels a little awkward though is in general, Conspiracy feels like it's just trying to create an environment of aggressiveness, a lot of card draw, a lot of small creatures, a lot of incentive to attack. High toughness creatures don't really play into that as much, so it makes me feel like there's not going to be all that many, but I guess we'll know more tomorrow. Beyond that, you could use this in a cube for cube draft, and then you can put as many high toughness creatures as you like in it and actually increase the power level of this card probably. Next we have Illusionary Informant. 1 blue and 1. It's a bird illusion, a common, 1/3, and when you draft this face up. During the draft, you may turn Illusionary Informant face down. If you do, look at the next card drafted by a player of your choice, and this has flying. So a couple things about this card. Let's evaluate the creature first. 1/3 flyer for 2 is actually pretty good. I wouldn't mind drafting that. It's obviously even better with that conspiracy we just looked at, so there's a combo right there. But I don't mind drafting something like this. It's a little more defensive. And like I said earlier, it's a defensive creature in a world of a lot of very aggressive creatures. So this could help you slow down the game at least slightly, if nothing else. Aside from that, the draft mechanic I think is really interesting and really fun. Now, you draft this face up, which does give everyone at the table at least a little bit of a clue that you're in blue, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, because hopefully the folks next to you may decide to let you have blue and stay out of it. Also, on top of that, you get to look at one of the draft picks coming up, which is going to allow you to see what maybe the person next to you is drafting, so you can kind of stay out of their way and have a smoother draft. Now, it's kind of interesting because the more experience you have drafting, the more you kind of learn how to pick up signals, and you look at cards when they're passed to you, you kind of notice what's missing, you notice what colors appear to be open, but that comes with experience and comes with time. For a new drafter who is a player who maybe has only drafted a few times and they play a card like this, it's going to start getting them to think about the draft in a much deeper way, and I think that's really cool. So just because of that, I think this is awesome design. Great inclusion. I just really enjoy what this does to the draft itself, especially for new players who aren't used to picking up those signals. Next we have Spire Phantasm. 2 blue and 2. It's a gargoyle illusion, uncommon, 3/2. Reveal Spire Phantasm as you draft it. The next time a player drafts a card from this booster pack, guess that card's name. Then that player reveals the drafted card. This has flying, and when this enters the battlefield, if you guess correctly for a card named Spire Phantasm, draw a card. So if you guess correctly and you drafted maybe 3 of these, for example, but you only guessed correctly in 1, they all get the benefit, so that's kind of nice. Again, the card on its own, 4 for a 3/2 flyer, is actually pretty good. Real aggressive creature. It has evasion. I really like that. It is 2 on color, so you do have to think about that. It's not an easily splashable creature, but very good card if you're in blue. The effect, again, is just another way to hopefully manipulate things to kind of stay out of your opponent's way, because you can guess, and whether you guess right or wrong, you get an idea of what maybe the person next to you is drafting, and that alone might just be invaluable information. Now, if you happen to guess right, wonderful, right? You get a bonus when you play this card, and it's a great bonus. Now, it's probably easier to guess correctly if you pick this up late in the pack when there's not a whole lot of good cards left. And you probably have an idea what your opponent's probably going to take. Or else even early in the pack, if there's something that's really good in a color that you think the person next to you might be in, then it may be a little simpler than, say, in the middle of the pack where it could almost be anything, right? So it's interesting. I really, again, like this little side mini game that they're turning the draft into. It's a lot of fun. It's almost like a little pre-game you get to play before you actually sit down and play Magic. Next we have Garbage Fire, a red and 2. It's an instant. Reveal Garbage Fire as you draft it, and note how many cards you've drafted this draft round, including Garbage Fire. Garbage Fire deals damage to target creature equal to the highest number you noted for cards named Garbage Fire. This one's a common, and this is a great burn spell. I mean, okay, it doesn't hit opponents, but you know what, that's fine, because if you just happen to draft this really late in a pack, that would probably be way too powerful. But it does take care of a lot of creatures if you draft it in the middle to late portion of the pack. But again, this is another card that really makes you think about how you draft, when you draft, at what point you're going to take this card, because you can't really pass this card. If you want it, guess what? It's not coming back, right? No one's going to let you have this card after the 8th pick. So you have to take that into consideration when you're making your pick, that if I really need this burn spell, I'm going to have to take it. And maybe I'm taking it a little earlier than I would have liked to have taken it, but guess what? It's not coming back. And if I'm lucky, maybe I will get one a little bit later that's maybe a pick or two later in the pack. And then I'll get value that converts across all of them. So awesome card. Again, just like I mentioned with the last 2 cards, I just love this side game they've created with the draft. Next we have Grenzo, Havoc Raiser. 2 red, legendary creature, Goblin Rogue. This is a rare 2/2. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, choose 1. Goad target creature that player controls, or exile the top card of that player's library. Until end of turn, you may cast that card, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast it. Okay, first off, I love the art. I love the flavor text. Home run from a flavor point of view. Card's awesome. As far as Conspiracy goes, this is a really good card. I mean, you pick this up, it's a beater. I mean, a 2/2 for 2. Granted, it is 2 red, which maybe you're playing this on turn 3 or something like that, more realistically. But once it's out, if you have any creatures with evasion, you can start getting in and milling your opponent. Or you could use the goad mechanic, at least on some of the creatures, to force them to attack a different opponent, and next time maybe they're open for a larger attack and you can mill them down even more. Very, very intriguing card. I feel like this is going to be great in the limited game because you're going up against opponents with decks that will be probably between 40 and 50 cards, considering it's the Conspiracy format. So it's relatively easy to let that get out of control, and somebody could potentially get decked after a while. Amazing mechanic here, and just the fact that this card itself doesn't have to get in for damage. It's whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player. So if you have creatures with evasion, unblockable, flying, trample, whatever, you can trigger the effect, and that gets pretty out of hand. Now this card will be even better if you can go wide in Conspiracy. Again, we haven't seen the whole set, so if there's a way to generate lots of goblin tokens or spirit tokens or something like that, this card gets a whole lot better. And for all those same reasons, this is great in cube. And you can put this in a cube that has a lot of go wide strategies for red, and the card gets even better, right? So this is incredible. This will be a huge cube card, I think. Commander, again, another real strong card for Commander. Now it's a little different in Commander because the milling aspect isn't quite as important. However, being able to get in there and either use the first ability or even maybe, just maybe, cast some big Haymaker spell off your opponent's deck, that could be huge. Again, you do want some evasion creatures to go along with this for it to really work and for you to capitalize on it. And you know, this can be a commander. It's a legendary creature in a mono red deck. Maybe you play it with a bunch of haste creatures or something to get value, and you put this down and just try to ping some damage across and hopefully play some huge like battlecruiser cards off your opponent's deck. Yeah, that could be crazy. So I think it's going to be phenomenal there. As far as Legacy goes, is this Legacy playable? I'm trying to kind of figure out where it would work best. I mean, you do need evasion. That's the thing. Now, it is a fragile card. You do have to take that into account. I mean, if it's your commander, you can always recast it. In Legacy, it's a little harder to deal with. It's a legendary creature, so you don't want to be in a situation where they're blocking up your hand. So you have to decide how many you want in your deck, and then how many is the right number considering how fragile its toughness is. So I don't know. Can it get there? I mean, maybe in a goblin deck that's going wide and just is really aggressive and really fast, or maybe even a zoo deck. I don't know. I'd like to test it and see, though. I think there's potential there. I don't know if it could quite get there, but potentially it could be quite interesting. Again, in Legacy, the mill aspect wouldn't be super exciting, but if you could just cast something off your opponent's deck, it could be a very intriguing turn of events in that game. Now, the only thing you have to think about is usually decks like goblin decks, I mean, they don't want a whole bunch of expendable mana. They're all about aggression. So I think that's your biggest stumbling block, is designing a deck where you have the right amount of mana for it to matter when a creature does get in and do damage. Next we have Skyline Deathspot, and this is 2 red and 5. It's a dragon, 5/5 rare with flying, and when this enters the battlefield, you become the monarch. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you're the monarch, put a 5/5 red dragon creature token with flying on the battlefield. So in Limited, this thing is a bomb, and guess what? If no one can deal with this, you're going to win the game. This is a 5/5 flyer that's going to give you a 5/5 flyer every turn that you can hang on to that monarch token. Now, if your opponents can deal with the creature or get that token away from you, okay, so be it. But if they can't, you just won, basically. For the most part, you've won the game. Now, this is an interesting card because it really does force everyone to team up against you, because they're going to know. They have to know that this is going to be game ending. So you do have to take that into account. When you play this card, everyone's going to be gunning for you. But if you play this later in the game when maybe a couple of opponents have already gone out and you use this as a finisher, this could be quite good. So definitely a strong card in the Conspiracy format. This could be very interesting in cubes as well. And I think this is also a very interesting commander card. Next we have Volatile Chamara, 1 red and 2, Elemental Chamara. This is a 3/2, this is another rare. Before you shuffle your deck to start the game, you may reveal this card from your deck and exile 3 or more creature cards you drafted that aren't in your deck. Pay a red and 1. Choose a card at random you exiled with cards named Volatile Chamara. Volatile Chamara becomes a copy of that card and gains this ability. Now this is interesting. First off, not a great card for constructed formats, right? Because it's just a 3/2 for 3. But if you're in a draft format, this becomes very intriguing. It's still a 3/2 for 3, which is actually really good in Limited. I mean, those stats are just fine. Now you have a decision to make. What creatures are you going to put in your sideboard that are so good that you'd want to use with this card, but aren't good enough that you're going to put in your deck? Creatures that are off color would be probably the best choice. So what this card does is it allows you to draft some good creatures that maybe aren't in the colors you're playing and still get some use out of them. Again, a card that completely changes the way you think about the draft. That's awesome. If you can draft well around this, it can be very, very good. But there is an element of luck involved too in the draft, right? You might not get those opportunities, and if you don't, the card's not quite as great, but it's still very playable. Like I said, a 3/2 for 3. This could be really strong in a cube. In a cube, this could really shine, because now you're thinking about cards like, oh, I don't know, Emrakul or Grizzlebrand, stuff like that. So that could get really nuts really fast. Really awesome card. I love this design, like I said earlier. All right, here's the big reprint of the day. It's Berserk One Green. This is an instant. It's a mythic. Cast Berserk only before the combat damage step. Target creature gains trample and gets +X/+0 until end of turn, where X is its power. At the beginning of the next end step, destroy that creature if it attacked this turn. Wow, where do I begin with this thing? All right, a little history. This was originally printed in alpha, then in beta, and of course unlimited. It was only reprinted after that one more time, and that was in From the Vault Exiled, which was the second From the Vault. I think that was from 2009, so it was many years ago now. It was printed with this art and From the Vault, so this was new art that I got from that particular release. And if you're looking at value of these cards, I mean, it's about a $100 card. If you want a From the Vault or an unlimited version, it's going to run you $95 to $100. If you're looking for a beta version, those usually run about $200 if they're in good condition, and alpha versions usually run about $250. This was originally an uncommon when it was printed the first 3 times. Of course, when it went over to From the Vault, it was given the Mythic logo and upgraded to quote-unquote From the Vault Mythic. But of course, here it is as a Mythic, and it is an incredibly strong card. Now, it's not going to show up all the time, but the reason they've decided to include this in a multiplayer-centric set is you have to really read in between the lines here. Now, if you use this card straightforward, it's phenomenal. You're going to get crazy damage across, maybe even put somebody away. But what's interesting about this is you can use this as an instant on an attacking creature. The creature doesn't have to be attacking you. It could be one of your opponents attacking another opponent. You berserk their creature. The opponent that's being attacked is going to have to deal with now a trampled creature with double the damage. And at the end of the turn, the opponent with the creature that attacked is going to have to destroy their own creature. That's awesome, right? So this card is incredible in those type of situations, but it's even incredible if you're just attacking it for damage. Phenomenal inclusion here. And this is a huge reprint from a financial point of view. I mean, this is like Eternal Masters level huge. I mean, think of some of the cards in Eternal Masters. I mean, Force of Will was worth less than $100 when the set came out. The Mana Vault was okay, maybe around $170. Krakus was about this price at about $100. So I mean, this is the type of reprint that you could have seen in Eternal Masters. We're seeing it here in Conspiracy. It makes me wonder what else we're going to see over the next 24 hours. Amazing, amazing card. This is awesome. All right, we have another reprint. Maybe not quite as exciting as the last one, but still a good one. Dragon Lair Spider, 2 red, 2 green, and 2. This is a spider. It's rare. It's 5/6. It has reach. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, put a 1/1 green insect creature token onto the battlefield. This was originally printed in Planechase 2012. It got a reprint in the Commander's Arsenal as a foil, and that's it. Those are the only places you can get this card, and it's a phenomenal Commander card. Phenomenal. 6 toughness is a big deal, even in Commander, even in big multiplayer games. It has reach, which is important because a lot of Commanders have flying, and every time an opponent casts a spell, you get a token, 1/1 to insect. Absolutely, sign me up all day long. This card's amazing. Now, this will be just as good in a multiplayer draft format. This is good in cubes too, but it really shines in multiplayer games. I mean, amazing for Commander, and I think this will be a great pick in your Conspiracy draft. And finally, our last card of the day, it's another reprint. It's Duskmantle Seer, 1 black, 1 blue, and 2. Vampire Wizard, 4/4 flyer. At the beginning of your upkeep, each player reveals the top card of his or her library, loses life equal to that card's converted mana cost, then puts it into his or her hand. Now, this card was originally printed as a mythic in Gatecrash, and at that time, I guess the reason it was a mythic was because it was a 4/4 flyer for 4, and you don't usually see that, especially in blue and black. So you usually don't see 4/4 for 4 in blue or black in general, much less flying. So I think that pushed it over the edge, also considering it had an interesting ability, made it a mythic. Financially, it's not a huge card. I mean, you can pick these things up for like $1 or $2 very, very easily. Probably fits much better as a rare in any set. But the reason this is so intriguing in this set is if you wanted to look throughout the history of Magic and pick out a card to reprint in Conspiracy Take the Crown, this is maybe one of the best cards you could have chosen because it does everything that this set's trying to do. It speeds up the game and creates action. It's a cheap 4/4 flyer. It can get in there and rumble. That's going to create action. Your opponent's going to have an answer to it or an answer to you to continue the game. The effect gives you and your opponent more cards, which generates, guess what? More action on the battlefield. On top of that, the card draws themselves create a clock by potentially doing damage to everybody at the table. It speeds the game along. It hopefully creates situations where you're not going to have as many people getting decked. You'll be able to actually finish out your games. And that's really what they've been going for from what I've seen so far from these previews. And this is the perfect example of that strategy. Phenomenal, thoughtful card to add to the set. Like I said, maybe not exciting from a financial point of view, but really amazing in this draft environment. Having said that, those are the cards for today, and tomorrow the whole set is going to be revealed, and when that happens we'll start our full set review. So tomorrow we'll be back. We're going to talk about all the white cards and some of the multicolor cards, and then we'll do that every day as we normally do until we can wrap up with all of the colorless cards a few days down the road. If you've seen our Eternal Masters review, we're going to do something very similar. We're going to focus on the draft format very heavily and where cards will fit into which archetypes, so on and so forth, but we'll talk about Eternal formats also when they are relevant. Having said that, hey, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and have a great day. Hey, thanks as always for watching. This video, like all my videos, was made possible by the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Even a donation of $1 helps me to keep growing this community and creating better quality content for all of you. Check out our Patreon page for exclusive giveaways and future goals for the channel. If you haven't yet had a chance to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the MTG news, spoilers, set reviews, product openings, or finance videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day.